Hey folks, how's it going? RedMaster here, and welcome back to another video, a special video for the channel today. As you can see on the screen, a lot of information coming at us from a recent AMA over on the CNC Discord that happened just under a few hours ago here. And since then, we've had time to sort of digest all the information given, a lot of questions answered, a lot of things that we did know, but also some things that we now know for the first time and are worth noting about. So I did want to kind of bring this to you guys as sort of my interpretation and my recap behind the AMA. For those of you who also maybe aren't a part of our Discord here, so you don't feel left out of the information. Of course, all the information is currently online in the text form in the Discord, so link to that below if you did want to join it. But on top of that, additionally, there is a new server for the upcoming game, which I think they did mention later down the line here. I know I'm doing a lot of spoilers in this initial part here, but yeah, right here, there is a link to join a new Cards 2 Castle server, which we believe is the name of the sequel at this point here. So if you want to join that and get more up-to-date details, more instant details on any sort of news related to C2C rather than waiting for me to upload an hour or two behind all the new information, you can of course go ahead, join this server to be in the know at all times. But with that being said, I do want to recap more of the big points here. As you can see, there is certainly a couple of points to take away from. So I'm going to go ahead and break down some of the finer details. Let's go ahead and take a look at those right now. So one of the big points that people wanted to know during the AMA were the price range, because people figured out that the game would be pay to play from the interview we did with Vect about a month ago or so, and the platforms it will be launching on, because obviously currently C1 is available on mobile and on Steam, so people were kind of wondering if that same model will be appearing for the next game here, and we have answers to both of those questions on both price and platform here. They mentioned in terms of price here, the current plan to charge approximately $20, which, to be honest, I know some people who are more free-to-play may look at that price and kind of shy away from the game, but that's really nothing compared to what I've ultimately put into C1 over the years, so I'm fine with $20 being put in. I understand, though, if you are strictly free-to-play, this might not be appealing to you. I urge you, though, if you do see this, to give it a chance. $20 is certainly is a price, but considering that we're also not getting additional packs or having to spend any extra money on microtransactions, I feel that the $20 is a very small price to pay when you're getting the entirety of the game at your disposal here, which they do elaborate on, I think, in the AMA further, that you're given, a hefty amount of starter cards for your collection. You craft the legendaries as you go. You're incentivized to play the game to then earn your collection, which, if that's the model they're going for here, I surely think $20 is a very small price to pay to just unlock all of that potential. In terms of platforms, though, they mentioned that they're initially releasing a Steam Early Access version. So, similar to how they launched C1 over on Steam via Early Access, although they're going to reserve the mobile launch for a later time here. They said they're going to follow the early access on Steam with a mobile launch, which hopefully should be very close in time frame. So, unfortunately, if you are strictly a mobile user, you're going to have to wait just a little bit of extra time for C2 to launch. But in the meantime, I mean, with all the C2 stuff that'll be undiscovered, you'll certainly be able to learn a bit more and watch as things progress. I mean, I'm going to be making content on it. I'm sure other people will be too. You definitely, make a judgment call to peer in on some of those videos here and learn if you are on mobile. So that way, when the game does launch for mobile at whatever price it ranges at, you'll have a little bit of a head start because you've been watching, you've been observing all that good stuff. So I do like this information going on right now. I'm a little bummed out that the mobile won't be launching the same time as, so there's going to be a little bit of a player gap. But I think ultimately for what we're getting, that's a fine sacrifice we can make. But certainly a good point to start out with nonetheless. So another point that people were very concerned about, or at least had a lot of questions regarding, were the fact of health bars and the level systems again. Because obviously those were points of criticism that came out from initial screenshots and videos from the C2 product here. So some people wanted some more elaboration on that. And I think overall, I can read you what was written here. I mean, there's a lot here with these big paragraphs. You know, even here with the level system, as this portion too. It's certainly a lot to say, but I kind of want to morph this one into less of a recap and more of my personal opinion on the matter here, because it is something that I think people are going to find divisive in the new game here. So I'm going to kind of leave you guys with this. Both the level system and the health bars were something that I was initially skeptical about myself, even as, you know, a tester, being able to play games in that new environment here. And again, like I said, I was one who was, you know, is this going to work here? Are you sure about this? But the more I was able to play and the more games I've got under my belt since now and then, I can really say that I kind of see where they're coming from, and I understand what they're trying to say with this. They've created a game that has you more visually focused on what's happening on the board here, and, you know, having to think about some reactive decisions rather than worrying about exact calculations here. And I think that's a huge, huge plus for why the game is so enjoyable for me. You know, it's not that I could just see numbers, make the calculations, and boom, find lethal. It's that I have to be strategic and reactive to what's happening on the board around me, and that just creates a much more enjoyable strategic experience for players who like that, rather than just, you know, hey, I'm gonna go do numbers because 5 is greater than 3. Like, that's fine if that's your thing here, but if you're looking for that additional strategy making decision, I think this is it's a great system. And again, I have to tout that it's probably not going to be a system for everyone. It's something that I think you definitely have to play for yourselves to really be able to find that clear answer for yourself on, hey, is this something I can enjoy or not? Yes or no. And, you know, once you come to that decision, man, even if it's good or bad, at least you are able to come to that based on you playing the game. So I definitely think that it's something that you have to experience for yourselves, but from someone who's played the game for multiple games, by the way, multiple matches, I do think it's a much more enjoyable experience than C1 here, in that, you know, you have to be reactive, you have to be strategic, there's much more going into your thought process behind moves and actions that aren't really being seen in the C and C1 product. So I definitely love that. I love that, but again, I understood if it's not for everyone. But those, I think, are points that are certainly worth mentioning here. I know they're bigger portions than I think I would care to read out here for the recap. But I can tell you that right now, if you're someone who wants more of this elaboration stuff, they're definitely here. They're highlighted here. If you want, pause the video or check in the Discord for yourself if you want to read these points here. Because they are long, they are expedited, but I do think that I still tout my personal opinion over this. That you really have to experience it for yourself to get a clear answer. But yeah, overall, great detailing by them. Another point that was brought up in the AMA that was a bit newer to some folks was the introduction of a lobby system, or at least that's what they're calling it as of now here, in regards to if there will be a non-ranked mode for people to enjoy, which, you know, is fair. C1 has currently only a few ways to play, you know, friendly, tournament, and the regular standard ranked. And, you know, some people aren't really always up for doing ranked. So in regards to this, they are mentioning that we're still working out all the details of how our matchmaking system will work. We're definitely hoping to make sure that people who want to play without stakes have options. And one of the systems that they've installed is the lobby system. They reference that in most card games, they, you know, match you with just random opponents based on skill or selecting friends. But in C2, they've got lobbies that you can invite a bunch of your friends into, and players can quickly start up matches as well as jump between tables of ongoing matches as spectators, all within a single lobby. So this is absolutely huge, not only just for a new casual way for players to enjoy the game, but also for things like tournaments. You know, as someone who's sort of run tournaments, as someone who, you know, casting conflicts is pretty big here. There's a lot of matches to go on for that here. Having lobbies is a great way for us to maybe run a lot of individual matches at the same time, and being able to jump between them, which is really, really cool to see. The spectator especially has me curious on what limitations and what privileges we're given as spectators. But that is a really cool new innovation that they're kind of bringing to the Cards and Castles community. It's just the idea of a larger lobby system which we can potentially hold, you know, tournaments in all at the same time. and doing so in a place where it's so easy to keep tabs on what's going on. That's fantastic. It's incredible. I'm very excited to see how that goes. And I think there is a little bit more regarding the spectator mode here, I believe. Going through all this here. I think who you see, that's the problem with these big AMAs like that. I should have found that before here, but you know me, guys. Sometimes I just go off my own thing. Okay, yeah, there you go. Will there be spectator mode? Spectator mode is built into the lobby system where you can watch matches and friends with friends. You also have a replay system so you can share and analyze multiplayer matches after you've played them. So additionally to the lobby system, there is going to be replays where you can, of course, view back your own matches and then maybe even record or commentate over them. That's pretty big for content creators like myself, who I know that for the last few years with my gameplays, have always had to record them as I'm doing them live and having to worry about, making sure the camera's rolling correctly while I'm doing the gameplay. It's absolutely huge that we have that replay system now. It's fantastic, and certainly would like to see what they do with that. However, on the topic of ranked here, I think there's an interesting point that we should discuss about with the ranked system next. So following up that point of non-ranked and casual modes here with things like the lobby system and whatnot, further down the line there was a question regarding the ranked ladder plans here. Will the placement system of CNC1 that has heavily rewarded only playing placements be at long last retired? Referencing the fact that right now, if you're playing CNC1 ranked, there is certain ways that you can generate those higher star counts by only doing your placements rather than continuing to grind. But yeah, the question was, will that be in place or will that sort of be put to rest here? And quite the swerve answer here we got here, as they're currently looking at replacing the ranked ladder with entirely some sort of tournament system instead. They wanted to rethink what it means to be a competitive player in a 1v1 game like CNC2, and have been looking at the fighting game tournament communities for inspiration and ideas. Our goal is to build competitive communities with strong rivalries and fun events, and it might be better to keep focused entirely on media tournament events that can really showcase more intense competitive play. Your feedback on this is very much appreciated. Referencing the fact that I guess once we get more regarding CNC2, once the gameplay starts to flow, they'll be looking at maybe developing a community that's more competitive around that. We're still kind of unsure if there's going to be a ranked ladder in place to showcase this, but I don't know. It seems like that might not be the case. We'll have to really just double check and see as we grow closer to release date with that. But it's kind of worth noting that they want to kind of make a more competitive scene. They want to create that competitive environment that you see in other esport environments. Top of my head, things like Hearthstone esports, things like the CRL, all competitive communities around card games. So will we see a similar vein of that with CNC2? Perhaps. But of course, everyone can do it a little bit differently, so here's hoping that they can as well. Actually, I was curious when they mentioned this, so I followed up with, will the team be looking into supporting a competitive scene if given the opportunity here? Which, is fair, because I felt like the question above only really got the idea of ranked ladders and how exactly we're going to rank players. But when asked about, a competitive scene, like something like Casting Conflicts we do here on the channel, they said, yes, definitely. We really want a thriving competitive scene and very much want that for the game. To have a healthy top-end level for players, streamers, and content creators. And then he references his path as a Hearthstone esports caster. And I mean, even got an answer from the big man himself, Big Man Vontre. Absolutely, this is something we'd love to support, and while we have limited resources as an indie dev, we have a few small-scale ideas here, and we'll be doing our best to help drive a competitive scene forward. So, it sounds like once CNC2 really gets rolling gameplay-wise, once things are functional, once people are enjoying the game here, there's going to be that next step in perhaps a more competitive environment, a more competitive community with, like they said, tournaments, maybe leagues. We'll have to see where it goes here, but certainly something that would be very interesting. Hopefully, maybe we'll have a community where people can set up different tournaments and leagues, and maybe have developer support behind those, depending on which ones they want to support. And it sounds very promising and very exciting. So I thought I would bring that up here because I know myself included, I love the idea of a competitive card game scene. And while there are things, yes, that exist like that currently, you know, they're not things that I have super close connections with. And I feel like something like that in CNC, and being able to maybe help create that is absolutely fantastic. So gotta love the competitive spirit here, hyping up and all that. But I mean, what else is in the game exactly here? We've looked at the competitive scene, we looked at the rank ladder. What about some stuff that's actually showing up inside of the game? So, scattered throughout the AMA, there is bits and teases about, what's coming up inside of the game, what is, being showcased. Obviously, things like this character art here, which, I mean, I don't want to expand because then, it kind of gets cut off by the way that this screen lock is right now. Or things like the Tarius here, which I guess he kind of shows up a little bit. He's missing the bottom portions there. But in terms of what's actually coming gameplay-wise, we actually got a huge tease. So I'm going to kind of scroll in here and find it. Question over here. Will we be expecting a new faction? Big answer here, yes. We have an all-new 7th faction in C2. You might recognize some parts of it, but there's a ton of very cool new stuff specific to the 7th faction in both the story and the cards. So, after the release of Druids here, many people thought that that was going to be the final faction for the game here, but I guess we're being proven wrong, as now we do have a brand new 7th faction that will be alongside of the existing parts here, alongside the Viking, Crusader, Pirate, Warlock, Ninja, Druid, and Neutral here. So really the 8th faction, because Neutral is always sort of like the redheaded stepchild of the factions. But yeah, not a lot that we know currently about the 7th faction here. There were additional teases about what it could be here. I think this was highlighted as the character art for their boss here, which you can note protruding rib cage and bone-like structure here. So some people speculated that the Lich is making some kind of impact here, which I guess we can kind of tell from the world map, as this was also dropped as a bit of a teaser. I know bottom portion cut off because of the current screen recordings and whatnot, but if you can see this little like purple bit here, almost like a dead zone, that could maybe potentially be a hint as to what our 7th faction could be. But yes, it's very exciting that that is sort of coming into fruition here. And I mean, what that could entail in terms of actual gameplay, we're not too sure yet, because I didn't want to spoil too much else other than just here's an outline, and hey, a 7th faction exists. But I figured I'd bring it up because it is important to discuss that, how there's going to be a new faction coming in, and with that, a new faction dynamic. When Druids first came into C1, there was a huge shakeup in the possibilities that you could play for decks here. Going to be no different when the new faction comes in C2 here, because now you'll just have further possibilities, further opportunities to mix and match different combinations, which by the way, there is going to be, I think, the dual faction system returning here, decks being composed of 2 factions, although I think it was hinted that you could be able to break this rule, perhaps, with the Pirates. I'm just trying to scroll through here and see if I can pinpoint it exactly. I know it was somewhat axed here. Oh, yes, right here. 2 factions like before, but if there's not enough factions for you, then maybe the Thieving Pirates can find a few more factions under special circumstances. So, it sounds like you might be able to break sort of the traditional 2-faction system with Pirates. So, again, further combinations there. But, I mean, the main idea I want to get to people is that a 7th faction is being planned here, other than the, the usual Big 6. So, very, very exciting here to see where that goes in gameplay, and hopefully that does flourish out quite well. So following up from that, there really wasn't much else that I had specifically for other bits and teases. They did kind of tease some things here. No one really got into specifics on what we could see from factions, just the fact that new cards are coming here. And I mean, the teases that we've got, I've already shown you, the Tarius art, the full art for the big heroes of each faction. It looks like here, by the way, this is panned out here. The world map looking pretty nice here. Give us a giant world view of basically what we're going to be walking in with the campaign. They've kind of illustrated this as sort of the main campaign map that we'll be focusing on, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of little bits and pieces all throughout this world map, which I think I mean, I'd have to get this more zoomed in, but I think there are certainly things that you could look at maybe on a closer inspection here. But I mean, yeah, realistically, there's just a bunch of nice things in here. Oh, I think one more thing that you might have already seen here. This little guy, absolutely adorable. Love him. Love him with a passion. Pretty much confirms that the Penguin will be making an appearance in CNC 2. The big meme that he was never showcased in CNC 1, even though being on the Arctic Explorer art, you know, like, no, what happened to the Penguin? There's no Penguin. There's a Penguin now. Uh, yeah. But overall, just a lot of fun things here. I mean, you can certainly read all of these through yourself here. There's a lot of other points here that I feel like maybe just not worth mentioning, at least in a video, because they're very self-explanatory if you read them. And I've kind of been scrolling all throughout the anime. Like, at any point, you could just stop the video here, read a quick bit of information, and then just carry on with the video here. I've pretty much showcased everything via scrolling at some point here. So, it's just fantastic. I mean, like I said, the new C2 server, or C2C server, excuse me, up on online. You can join that, link for that in the description below here. But before I do leave, I want to talk about C1 because they did also mention some final notes for what's going to happen in the current existing game of CNC1. So that way, if you folks do end up playing CNC1 over the second, or just like this one more, there is some news for you here too. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So one of the plans that was thought to be in the works was a final C1 update for folks as a way to send off people in the game happy. You know, if they want to make the switch or, you know, stay put, regardless, there would be some variety in C1, so that way there was a little bit of a shake-up here. Unfortunately, for those of you who were expecting any sort of C1 updates, it's unfortunate that they respond with the architecture that C1 was built on isn't available for additional content to be developed or deployed, so we don't have any plans to do so at this time. It sounds like they just don't have the resources to make any sort of updates doable in their plans here, which is a bit unfortunate, because C1 definitely has some moments where you could tweak it, make it better, balance updates and whatnot to shake up metas, but you know, overall, if the meta would have to be left in any way, shape, or form, I don't think this one is really too bad of a state to be left in. Obviously, you've got your glaring issues, but for the most part, I would say it's pretty well done. It's pretty well balanced. You know, things sort of rock, paper, scissors each other nicely here and there. You definitely have options in terms of viable deck strategies. So even if this is sort of like the final C1 product we'll be getting for a while here, you know, it's not the worst. I definitely think it's not the worst. And I mean, to go along with this here, they asked if the release of CNC2 will cause CNC1 to shut down, which answer to that, we're not shutting down C1. Please continue to enjoy the game. So even if, say, you don't like C2, CNC1 is still going to be around, still going to be up and running for as long as possible here. I think I mentioned this before to folks, where realistically, CNC1 will never shut down via Red Team's own intentions. If at any point CNC1 has to disappear, it would unfortunately be a case where the product being put out into market, the technology being put out into market, no longer has the requirements to run the game. That would be sort of the only instance in which CNC1 would just stop existing. It would just purely be based on hey, the tech can't support this anymore, it's just not going to run it. And in which case, you know, it's fine. It's a case of, you know, the world evolving and unfortunately the game having to be left behind. Because, like we mentioned here, its architecture is too old. It can't be supported any longer. So it's nice to hear that C1 will continue to go for as long as it can, and won't really be shut down under the Red Team flag. It won't be under the Red Team's intentions that C1 gets shut off and C2 becomes the only option. It'll only become the only option when CNC1 says, hey, we can't be run because the tech can't support it. Which, again, people will always find ways, if they are passionate about something, to remake it or to restructure it or to build it back up. So I have hopes that the original C1 will continue to live on for as long as it can, and won't really see any sort of shutdowns until the very, very far future. So I think that's a good place to be for sure here. And overall, I think a good place to end off our recap. Like I said, though, a lot of additional information here that you can read up for yourself on. Like I said, I've been, scrolling through all parts of this AMA here, and hell, if you're in the Discord, or if you, have Discord and are in the CNC community, open up this channel and definitely take a read through it here. A lot of valuable information for the future and what their plans are for this next game that I think if you are a Cards and Castles fan, you'll definitely be excited to hear some of these points. So I definitely think it's a bit of time well spent reading all this information. But with that being said, folks, that's going to do it for me for now. I hope you enjoyed this little recap here. I hope you've learned something. I hope you're excited as I am for this game. I certainly am excited. And only time will tell when the exact release date is. Only time will tell. But, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to show some support. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with friends, of course. Comment down below your thoughts on the new game here. What do you take away from this AMA here? Are you excited? Are you more nervous? Again, let me know all that information in the comments section below. But with that being said, guys, that's it for me for now. Be sure to join both Discords, both this one and the new Cards to Castles server. Of course, links are in the description below. And, yeah, we'll see you guys next time. So, with that being said, until next time, stay gaming.